As Chiefs Kingdom knows, it is the Kansas City Chiefs bye week. The NFL action is kicking this Sunday morning, and I thought, what better time to discuss these pass rushers than now? So what I'm going to do is discuss these potential pass rusher candidates that might come to the Kansas City Chiefs before the Tuesday deadline looms above our heads. But before we do get into any of that, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video, as I'm going to keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chief related that you do not want to miss out on. And without further ado, let's have some fun. So getting into this video, we all know the key topic of conversation for the Kansas City Chiefs coming into this trade deadline is, and it's they need a pass rusher. You can ask anyone in Chiefs Kingdom, that's what they will clamor to you about, is if they don't get a pass rusher now, they're going to struggle throughout the season. So what I'm going to do for you guys is give you a ranking from basically 5 to my number 1 guy who I would love for the Kansas City Chiefs to get, because we have seen almost every pass rusher that is available be linked to the Kansas City Chiefs. And understandably so why it is. I don't believe every single pass rusher will be a fit, so I will mention probably most of them and go basically 1 to 5 onto why I want them on the team and what kind of capital the Kansas City Chiefs should give up for these pass rushers. But the first thing I want to get into on why Kansas City might not make a trade this deadline for a pass rusher and what would hold them back, and it would be themselves. So as we all do know, the Kansas City Chiefs, not the Kansas City Chiefs, more like Kansas City itself, the draft will be held there. And it seems like the Kansas City Chiefs are very reluctant to give up their first round pick, because they want to make a selection that day one and show the city love, and understandably so, I get it, but at the end of the day, I don't either. So if you look back to this prior draft, it was held in Vegas, and give it for what it's worth, the Raiders did not have a first round pick. And I know not a lot of us want to be compared to the Raiders, but in this kind of situation, I want to, because if you're going to, you just got to look at it in a different perspective. And I might put a poll here because I want to see how Chiefs Kingdom is going to view it as well. It's, would you rather hold on to a first round pick and build your team for the future? Or if you have a good chance at getting a pass rusher, like let's say a Brian Burns or a Josh Allen, to boost your chances to get a Super Bowl, and it is guaranteed, not a Super Bowl, but guaranteed to get that pass rusher, would you do it? I am almost willing to bet 95 to 100% of Chiefs Kingdom would not care about that first round draft pick if it's in the lights of locking up a Brian Burns or a Josh Allen, and hoping that they give you the kind of consistency, the productivity to get you a long playoff run and a Super Bowl run and get you back to holding the Lombardi. Again, I understand what the Chiefs organization wants to do. I understand what Clark Hunt wants to do as well. I just don't think you should hold yourself back, specifically if you have a chance to get a top tier pass rusher. Also, too, in that situation, the Kansas City Chiefs aren't going to be picking in the top 15. We all know that. At worst, they could pick 25 if they have a unfortunate playoff loss. But they're going to be picking between 30 and 32 at the end of the day. That means Chiefs Kingdom's going to be waiting the whole draft to watch a pick unless the Kansas City Chiefs trade up, which is likely to. They did this year. But even trading up, you're going to be trading a lot of capital. We saw they had to trade up a couple of picks to get into the top 20 to get Trent McDuffie. So I don't see them busting into the top 15 at all. So it's just like, why are we holding on to a pick that might not be a top 15 prospect coming to KC when you can get a great edge rusher like a Josh Allen or a Brian Burns? And also, that talent will not be available for KC when they pick. Now, I know there's slides, there's drops, the unpredictable happens in the draft. But if you have a guarantee, you might as well go after them. And also, too, with the Josh Allen, which we're going to discuss more, we know Brett Veach loves his former first-round picks, and there's going to be quite a few on this list that we will discuss. I don't know. I'm just very uncertain, and it would make me feel uneasy if the Kansas City Chiefs had a chance to get a guy like these guys out here, and they didn't just because they wanted to hold a draft pick to basically represent the city. A lot of you I know have mentioned and voiced your opinion on saying Kansas City wouldn't do nothing like that. But the reason why some of us Chiefs Kingdom is skeptical about it is because Brett Veach let his voice be known saying that, hey, Clark Hunt did not want me to move that first round pick. And it could still hold true to now. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Tuesday comes and whether KC makes the move or not. And if they don't make a big move, a lot of Chiefs Kingdom will be looking at that right away. Now let's get right into this list. I'm going to have 5 guys six, but five basically that I will mention on why I like them coming to Kansas City. Why I mention six is because we'll get right into this first guy, and I've heard clamorings and I've heard rumors, and it's nothing like legit or anything like that. It's mostly fan bases, specifically Chiefs Kingdom, wondering if they could make a move like this, and it's J.J. Watt. And I'm going to shut that down right now. Like, no, that should not happen. I don't think, I mean, of course it would bolster the pass rush and the D line, but at the end of the day, you have too much concern if you bring J.J. Watt. He is not the J.J. Watt of old, and I just wouldn't like the move on a player perspective, on a trade perspective, and on a financial perspective as well. In today's day, J.J. Watt, I don't think is no more than a rotational guy. And I'm not trying to slight him and basically say he's not a good pass rusher. Because at the end of the day, he can still get pressures. He can still get sacks. But at the salary he's commanding right now, it's not worth the production he is giving either. And also you got to think of the kind of draft capital you're giving up. I don't know. I don't think it would be too much because of his cap hit this year, which I think is over $17 million, which is rich, specifically for J.J. Watt. That is very, very rich. And that is something I do not want to see Kansas City go for because you don't know. Also, you don't know if he's going to be healthy. He's already dealt with injuries throughout the year. It seems like at this point in his career, he won't play a full season. And you're going to also hold his rights. But at the end of the day, that's not the kind of guy I want to hold the rights for. So I don't know. That would be a move I don't want to see, and also I don't think it's likely. I don't even think Arizona's shopping him, but at the end of the day, Arizona's in a game with Minnesota. It's neck and neck. If they lose it, they might be sellers. They might try to look for the future, but that's very highly unlikely too because Cliff Kingsbury is fighting for his job, and he's going to do anything to make sure them boys win. I don't see them being sellers at this point, and I don't see the Kansas City Chiefs being a buyer in a J.J. Watt sweepstake. At least I hope not, because I don't know. That would be one where I'd be like, why did we make that trade? That should not happen. But at the end of the day, I think it's far from realistic. At least I hope so. Now, the next guy we're going to talk about is probably the most realistic one, and it will probably be the one that happens, if anything, too. And it's going to remind a lot of Chiefs Kingdom. If it doesn't, it will when I mention it, of our Melvin Ingram situation of last year, too. And it's Arden Key. Now, yes, it's not a sexy name. A lot of y'all might not even know who the player is. But the Kansas City Chiefs showed interest in Arden Key throughout the offseason, similar to what they did with Melvin Ingram last year. And then they ended up pulling the trigger and making a trade with Pittsburgh to bring Melvin Ingram in. They could do the same with Jacksonville and bring Arden Key in as well. I know that's not the pass rusher a lot of Chiefs Kingdom is looking for out of Jacksonville. We will get into him as well. But if anything, it's the most realistic. Kansas City wouldn't have to give up too much draft capital. At the end of the day, he will be a rotational piece. He has 2 sacks this year. Last year, he had 6.5 with San Francisco. Again, it's not the sexiest name, but he can give you productivity. He can give you pressures. He can get to the quarterback, and he can be a solidified piece, and he might be able to come in next week that fill in for Frank Clark the couple weeks and then rotate with Frank Clark there. I know at the end of the day what we're looking for is just another body out there to basically be a presence and help this D-line. And if Arden Key can do that, and if we're only trading a 6th, maybe a 5th at most. I don't know how high that value would be. But if you're doing something like that and he ends up being productive, I'm not going to be too mad at it. Again, do I like it to the fullest? No, I don't. But do I see it happening? I fully 100% see it happening. I wouldn't be surprised. Honestly, here's how I see it working out. I do see the Kansas City Chiefs trying to go after one of these big names. And then once that trade deadline comes on Tuesday, and let's say they are not close, they end up pulling the trigger on a guy like Arden Key as a backup plan. That way, they don't basically come out of the trade deadline empty-handed without a pass rusher. And also, it somewhat kind of quiets down Chiefs Kingdom saying, hey, we brought someone in as well. I don't see them leaving the trade deadline empty-handed, and I basically see Arden Key being that answer if they can't pull the trigger on one of these big-name pass rushers. Now, moving on to the next guy on my list, and I think this is honestly an interesting name because coming out of the draft, he was raising up draft boards, and then he had it's not even an injury, he had an unfortunate health concern with his heart, and that is Montez Sweat of the Washington Commanders. Now, his NFL career has been inconsistent at best. He's never had a double-digit sack career, but also, too, he will strike the eye of Brett Veach because he is a former first-round pick, and he does have talent, and he is a physical pass rusher, too, where Brett Veach might want to show that, hey, maybe we can bring the best out of his abilities. We all know what Brett Veach does with former first-round picks. Whether you're garbage, whether you have great potential, whether you're mediocre, he will go after you and try to get the best out of your potential. And I think Montez Sweat would be no different. And honestly, it would be a move I would like to see too, because you would give up some draft capital, of course, but I don't think it would be too high end. I think you might give up your late second, maybe your last third-round pick. I don't think your first-round pick would be in jeopardy here, and I think that's why the Kansas City Chiefs could have discussions on trying to bring Montez Sweat in. Also, I know a lot of Chiefs Kingdom are going to be in the comments mentioning Daron Payne, and I like that too. I was mostly focusing on pass rushers here, and in a situation, he can be a pass rusher. He's mostly a run stuffer in my eye. I don't know too much about him. I have seen him on tape, but if I was the call for the Washington Commanders, I would like either or, honestly. I think either or would bolster your D-line, and I would love Daron Payne on the other side of Chris Jones. It makes Chris Jones better. It probably makes Payne better as well. It makes that whole D-line unit better as in a whole. As a draft capital, I think you would give up more for Payne. But in a pass rusher aspect, I think the Kansas City Chiefs might go with Sweat if they are interested in it, just because they do need that depth there, specifically with Frank Clark gone. And also in the future, too, with you don't know what's happening with Frank Clark as well. And then George Karlaftis is going to be your future. But also, you'd have question marks on Carlos Dunlap. He has had, I would say, a pretty good stint with KC so far as a rotational guy. Would you bring him back for another year? Will he play again? It's going to be interesting things to see develop into the offseason. I think Montez Sweat, with how old he is right now, I think he's going into his 4th year. So if you trade for him now, you would get his 5th year option, kind of similar with Kadarius Toney, and just see how it pans out and how it goes. I haven't seen too much rumors of if he's even available, but also, too, his production hasn't been there, and the Commanders have, I don't want to say a huge game against the Colts, but to keep your season alive, that's basically going to be the dilemma and situation there. With a lot of these teams as well, is if they lose, they could be sellers. If they win, they'll hold put, they could be buyers trying to make a playoff run. So if the Commanders beat the Colts today, they might hold still and believe they have a playoff run. If they lose, they could be sellers. It's going to be interesting to see moving forward on how all these games wrap up and what these teams become, either buyers or sellers into the trade deadline. Now, this next guy, as we speak, this won't happen at all because this team is probably very much alive in the playoff race, but if they were to lose, they could have easily have been sellers, and that is the New Orleans Saints, and they are putting an ass beating on the Las Vegas Raiders, which I love to see, but at the end of the day, I don't, because I was like, maybe this team would be sellers if they lost the Raiders, and maybe the Kansas City Chiefs would be able to get a chance to get Cam Jordan. That would be a huge veteran presence on that line. He is having another solid year to start off this campaign of 2022. And I just think if you wanted to bolster a line in any way, shape, or form, you would be able to go after Cam Jordan and someone who is fighting to get a Super Bowl ring nonetheless as well. But as I mentioned, the Saints are putting a handling on the Raiders right now, and the division the Saints are in is completely garbage. Like, everybody is 3-5 going into it. So that division is an arms race for anyone. Even Carolina and Atlanta still have a chance to win that division as well. So that's why Carolina might not even be sellers on Brian Burns if they have a legit shot at winning that division. That's how bad that division is. So that's why I say it's weird. It's a double standard for me. It's unfortunate the Raiders are losing, but it's also great that the Raiders are losing as well, because it's unfortunate we probably won't have a chance to get Cam Jordan. And also, I don't even know if he's available as well. But I just think that would be a great piece to have, because that's someone who is just, he's done it consistently throughout his career, and it's not someone you would have question marks about if he was traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. And I would be willing to give up a second-round pick for him. I don't think it would take a first, but again, I don't know. I'm not a GM. I'm not here doing draft strategies, trade capital, and all that. But with him being older and up there in his career, I don't know. He might be worth the first-round pick, but I think a second would do it. But I think this is just a pipe dream at the end of the day, because the Saints, they're still well and alive, and the Raiders, they couldn't handle business, which, hey, we gained another gain on them, so I'm happy for that as well. So let's jump into the saga that is Brian Burns, because this is very interesting, and I do not believe the Carolina Panthers are to trade him. But of course, we already know who these next two guys are. It's going to be Brian Burns, and it's going to be Josh Allen. And we're going to discuss Brian Burns first. And of course, both of these players will garner a first-round pick and some more capital too. And this is why I mentioned early in the video is if Kansas City's not willing to move that first-round pick just because the draft is held in Kansas City, you can cross these two guys off the list. But we don't know until Tuesday gets here and until Tuesday passes. But I would love to have Brian Burns on this team. He is the definition of a speed rusher. He knows how to get after a quarterback. And throughout his career, his young career, he has been consistent too, and he will definitely bolster this D-line as well. I think with a guy like Brian Burns, he is definitely your starter right away. And you put Frank Clark in. Oh, my apologies. You put Frank Clark in as your rotational guy, which I think would suit him well too. You wouldn't have to be too concerned about Frank Clark basically taking all the snaps. And I'm not saying Frank Clark is in that point of his career where he needs to be a rotational guy, but maybe that's what suits him best, and maybe that's how he will be a great pass rusher for the Kansas City Chiefs. He had a solid game against the San Francisco 49ers with 2 sacks, and now he's dealing with an unfortunate suspension. NFL, I'm looking at you because these untimely suspensions are killing us. But if the Kansas City Chiefs are able to get a pass rusher, then neither here nor there. I think Brian Burns would also be someone you can basically build a future around on this defensive line group and this defense too. You can give him a contract extension. Is he still on this rookie deal? I'm drawing a blank. I think he is. I think he is on his rookie deal. So he could be someone, if he lives up to the production and potential, you can give him that contract extension, and then you can build the defense throughout there, and then also give Chris Jones a contract extension, and then those are 2 great pieces to build that D-line in the future. Again, this one is probably very, very unlikely because there have also been reports that the Carolina Panthers have declined a couple first-round pick offers from him, which is absurd, honestly. If someone's offering you that much draft capital, I don't care how good a player is. I don't care what kind of playoff hopes you think you have. You are really playing with P.J. Walker right now. So if you make the playoffs, it's not like you're going to be one and done. You're not making it past the wild card. Build your team now. Try to get your quarterback of the future, get your weapons of the future, and build from there. So I don't really believe the Panthers will offer that much, because if they were, that'd be pretty stupid if they declined that. But hey, I'm not a GM like I mentioned. I'm not the one getting paid the big bucks to make this decision. So it'd be kind of surprising for me. But hey, it could have happened. I just don't see Brian Burns moving, unfortunately. So that's why we're going to discuss the next guy, and maybe the most likely big name trade candidate for the Kansas City Chiefs, and it is Josh Allen. Not the quarterback, the pass rusher. And he had a very quiet game today, so that maybe helped in a trade situation. I highly doubt it, though. The Jaguars know what they have with Josh Allen. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars could potentially be big sellers now with this loss against Denver and London, which very beneficial for us, because that means we might have a chance of landing a guy like a Josh Allen. If not, like I mentioned, we would get Arden Key. I think one of these 2 Jacksonville Jaguars will end up being a Kansas City Chief by the time this trade deadline passes. Of course, all Chiefs Kingdom, including myself, wants to see Josh Allen in a Kansas City Chief uniform. He has been a big name coming out of the draft. Now, I don't know if he's lived up to the hype or not. He's had a very inconsistent career to start off his career as well. But again, you see the talent is still there. You see he displays the speed, the pressure, the physicality to the D-line that you want to see. I think he would bolster this D-line in an instant. I think his presence would be second to none right away. I think he would also basically be a better presence than Brian Burns, but you can do the same type of situation as well, where you make Frank Clark the rotational guy and then build this line between Chris Jones and Josh Allen for the future that's given. Again, I really hope it happens. I really do. I really hope Kansas City wants to move our first-round pick and has offered it, because if they have, that means they are full buyers into this year, into getting that Lombardi back to Kansas City and holding it up again and getting that second ring. I really hope that's the case, because I'm not saying that's the only obstacle Kansas City needs to get to the Super Bowl, because it isn't. But we also seen too as well, Josh Allen against Josh Allen. He has been his kryptonite, if anything. I don't want to go that far, but hey, he knows how to get to the boy, and I would love to see that in the AFC Championship game, is Josh Allen stopping the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, and to get into the Super Bowl as well. And there's also familiarity between the Jaguars and the Kansas City Chiefs. Doug Peterson, Andy Reid, they might be able to get into communications. Who knows? Strike a deal. Who knows? I'm hopeful. But as well, is if Josh Allen comes to the Chiefs Hey, he's familiar with Joel Cohen, and Joel Cohen has brought out the best of Chris Jones. So you best believe he will bring out the best of Josh Allen as well. I just see that being such a scary duo, and it's something I'm so hopeful to happen that, hey, I don't know if it will happen, but I would give the moon for Josh Allen. Like, literally, I was trying to think of so many situations for this. Like, if the Kansas City Chiefs did not want to give up their first-round draft pick, maybe they can give up their second this year, a first next year, and I don't know, another pick. Like, maybe the Jacksonville Jaguars bite at that. I'm hopeful. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to find any way to get Josh Allen to Kansas City. It feels like we have been talking about this for a couple of years now, and it just feels like it should happen. There have been rumors, too, that the Kansas City Chiefs have inquired about him, too. So the interest is there. This is not a smoke dream, not a pipe dream whatsoever. It's just, are the Kansas City Chiefs willing to give up the capital that the Jacksonville Jaguars want? We can hope. We will find out Tuesday, though. Now, before I do close out this video, there is one more guy on my radar, and this is unrealistic to say the least, but it kind of popped in basically a light bulb above my head when I heard this report today, and it is Bradley Chubb. And there was a report that the Broncos have been offered a first-round pick and multiple picks by an unidentified team from a source. Now, I think, again, at the same situation with Brian Burns, it's like, if someone is offering you that for Bradley Chubb, why didn't you take it? And for the Denver Broncos, two things came into my head at that point was that didn't really happen. Or two, the Kansas City Chiefs were the one to offer that deal. Because if anyone else is offering the Broncos that deal, I highly believe they take it. If it's a first-round pick and then multiple picks afterwards, the Broncos would be stupid not to take it. The only reason I could see them basically questioning it is if the Kansas City Chiefs offer that deal. And I can see the Chiefs doing it, basically inquiring and say, hey, can we try? Let's see. Let's stick our feet in the pool and see what we can get out of this and see if Denver will actually listen to us. I don't know. Divisional trades are so impossible to come by, but they're not too unrealistic. It's just what Denver views it at the end of the day. And also, Denver did win too, so they said if they won, they won't be sellers. They will believe they have playoff hopes, which, I mean, I will laugh at that at the end of the day. Just because you beat a Jacksonville Jaguar team who is not good either, hey, if you believe you have playoff dreams, hey, hope for the best for you guys as well. But I don't see the Broncos being sellers now because that's basically what they mentioned, and they're definitely not going to be sellers to the Kansas City Chiefs. I just thought that report was very interesting that they had multiple picks basically offered for Bradley Chubb, and you didn't accept it. It made that light bulb click like, why? Like, I mean, Bradley Chubb at best has been inconsistent throughout his career. If someone is offering you the bag for it, you take it. The only reason you don't take it is if the Kansas City Chiefs made that offer. So it made me think, if the Kansas City Chiefs are throwing offers out there, maybe they are throwing offers to Brian Burns. Maybe they are throwing offers to Josh Allen. Again, that's just how my mind works. That's how I wanted to let you guys know too as well. And that's basically this video and my opinions on all these pass rushers and how I feel on if the Kansas City Chiefs have a realistic shot at them. At the end of the day, I believe they have a realistic shot and they can get any guy they want to. The ball is in their court is if they want to give up their first round pick. I really hope they do, but at the end of the day, we won't find out till Tuesday afternoon. With that, Chiefs Kingdom, let me know in the comments down below who interests you as in the pass rusher position and who you would want to see as a Kansas City Chief come Tuesday, and if you believe the Chiefs will give up enough draft capital. With that, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. As you know, I will keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chief related. With that, I am checking out. Y'all enjoy this stress-free Sunday football day. Y'all take care. Peace.